Hi, friends, and welcome back. We are nearing the end of the year, and that means we're nearing the end of this Play Along Journal series. I wanted to start out with a tip right here at the beginning. So, my journal is getting very chunky here. And that means a lot of times when you're starting to get towards the end of the journal, it's really chunky on one side, and then the other side is kind of flat. So, one of the little tricks that I like to do, especially with my handmade journals like this, is kind of flip some of those pages back to the other side. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you watch right at the beginning there with what I did, so essentially the front and back cover now are on the right side as I work. This just helps it even out and it's not so lopsided and it makes it a lot easier for me to work. So I have a little flip book on the left side of this page, and so I'm just starting with adding some papers in there. I'm using a fun striped pattern paper so that it's one less page that I have to work on, and I like the boldness of that stripe. It's kind of fun to think about how we can add interest and intrigue without always doing it ourselves or doing it right there in the moment. So, whether that's gathering papers or making papers ahead of time and adding them to our pages. These pages are a little bit more tricky, I think, to come up with what you're going to do because there's so many elements going on. You have the flip through element on the left side, which then you need to decide if you're going to be doing something really intriguing on each individual flip, or if you're just going to kind of keep it as what this overall spread looks like as you flip to this page. I added in a little bit of white gesso just to blur those edges of from where I collage to the page itself. I like to make things look like they kind of ebb and flow rather than just being placed on top. I also added in a few scribble marks and another collage piece. Now for a bit of a focal element on the right side, I'm bringing out one of these pre-cut plus signs from Wow Studio. I love the vellum because it's kind of see-through there. With the gold foil, it adds a really fun interest point onto my page. I really don't use a lot of metallics in my work. It's not usually something I'm drawn to, but every now and then I think it can be a really fun touch to add. Using my Stabilo Woody to add just a few little art marks there, nothing too much, but just adds a little bit more intrigue into the page. I flipped through my pre-typed up quotes that I have and found one that I thought would go well on this little flip book, partially based on size, partially based on what the quote was. But typically, I like all of the quotes that I pre-typed because I'm the one that chose them. So for this, I was really trying to decide on one that would fit on the page well. I'm adding a bit of black gesso here just so that the quote can stick out from the background a little bit more. It adds more contrast, more dimension. Now, with that quote itself, I'm taking my black china marker and going around the edges. This will help it kind of stick out a little bit from the background as well. I have various scraps laying around on my tabletop, and this one is from a digital download, it looks like, and collaging that down. And now I am putting that quote so it's kind of overlapping, and adding in some scribble marks that are going to go behind it as well. Now for one of my favorite mark making tools, I'm bringing out my white correction pen, and where I did that black gesso, I'm using it as a bit of an outline for where I'm going to do my pinstripes. I think it creates fun, kind of abstract shapes. I did not plan the shape of the black gesso before I started, but once I do the pinstriping, I kind of just follow along with that, and I think it helps it stand out really well. I just love the dynamics of bold black and white. I think you guys know that from following my work, and having that bold white come out of the white correction pen is perfect. Now, something simple just for that area, I used the end of my sponge as if I was going to stencil, but without a stencil, and just did a few marks there and accentuated it with some pencil marks. So we've talked about this before, but I can really tell a change in my art style as I've gone on here. So this mustard journal I did before the teal one, and you can tell I'm kind of doing a lot to each individual section. I actually really, really love how this page turned out. But you'll notice with how short and how quick it takes me to do the teal journal spread, I've just gotten a little bit more simplistic in my style as I've gone along. And that's been a conscious effort just to tell myself that not everything needs to be so done up, or not everything needs to have such a quote unquote focal point. There can be a more abstract feel to it. And there is no right or wrong in how you work, but you can change your style over time if you're wanting to, or kind of not force yourself, but give yourself some guidelines of how you want to be. So if you are scrolling through Instagram and you find yourself really like falling for one specific style and you're like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's not my style." Well, if you want to do it, just challenge yourself to it. And maybe it's little by little. Maybe like with me, it was being more simple, stopping before maybe you think you're done. You can always come back later to add more on. This may not be the best page to say that on because I love how this one turned out. There is a lot going on, but I think the composition and everything came together really well, and it's kind of hidden underneath those flaps, so it's not a ton like right in your face as you turn to it. You have to flip through that flip book to kind of get the interesting spots. All right, so we're on to the teal spread, and I started out with some acrylic ink, and a little bit goes a really long way. So I tried to put just a little bit down. Working inside the journal can be a little bit scary with the acrylic ink because it can get on everything and go through all of your pages, but I was just trying to be conscious of that from the beginning. And with my paintbrush, I'm spreading that around. I don't think there was I didn't add a lot of water. I probably had a bit of a dampness on my brush and then just kind of drug that pigment around to the other spots on one of those flaps as well. Now I'm taking my white correction pen again, and with the black paper, I'm just doing that pin striping method again. I think it just stands out really nice, and then when that flap comes back down over top, you're just seeing part of those pinstripes, so it's not like all in your face. You just get it from behind. It's one of the elements that carries through. It's all about creating those layers and points of interest and intrigue. Here again, I'm following the shape that was left for me with the ink that I had done before. I'm not being super precise about it or super picky, but just kind of using that as a guide. I think it adds a really fun touch. I'm just flipping through here, seeing what else I want to add. Now, you don't need to add a bunch to every single page. I like to include pages in my journals that already have a lot going on, and so that's kind of a fun opportunity just to leave it alone and let it shine. For example, the white page that you can tell is torn out of like a recipe book or something, it already had a lot going on. I'm not adding anything to that. But on this plain cardstock paper, I did take out my Neo Color 2. A crayon would have worked because I don't even think I add water to this. And then accentuate it with some black marks around it. As always, I try to link those supplies that I use in the description below, so make sure to check that out if you're curious on the supplies that I'm using. I'm really excited about the upcoming year and the videos that I have planned on YouTube. If you have ideas for specific things that you'd like to see from me, make sure to put that in the comments down below and I can take those things into account. So I hope that you guys loved seeing the two versions of today's spread, one a little bit more going on and the other a little bit more simple. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend. See you next time.